I'm Eddie Brophy.
I'm Jason Smith.
We are Marks on Mania this evening because we're discussing the 29 WrestleManias leading into WrestleMania 38 New Orleans this year. And frankly, this was one of my favorites, although Bret Hart, double duty, he was wrestling his brother Owen. He wrestled Yokozuna for the title, ultimately won the title.
Yep.
But of course, Yokozuna had to wrestle Lex Luger and retain before we got that match. Some interesting things to note, while it was, and this gets argued a lot, but it wasn't the first ladder match, but I'll just go ahead and say it was the only ladder match that mattered at this point. It was the first WrestleMania ladder match. Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels.
Yep.
Obviously, you get a little, I don't want to say, maybe greedy is the word, but we grew up with the Hardy Boy, Edge and Christian style of ladder match era. So, of course, going forward, that's the kind of ladder match people expect at a WrestleMania or any kind of wrestling pay-per-view. But the kind of clinic they put in the ring for that first ladder match definitely set the precedent moving forward for ladder matches and for WrestleMania caliber, gimmick matches, if you will. One thing I do want to point out, this was the first WrestleMania that Undertaker did not appear at.
Yeah, I believe it was he had a facial injury or something like that. I believe his orbital bone was broken or something. I could be wrong.
No, I think that might have been it. I don't know. It could have been something else. I remember he wore the mask for a while because Yokozuna landed on his face.
It's around this time. I know he was out with an injury.
Which was a bit of a bummer, but obviously WrestleMania 10. Here's Jason with some of the stats.
I'll give you some of the stats. March 20th, 1994, Madison Square Garden, New York. Once again, the second time that they've visited this arena. 18,065. So a slight drop from the first WrestleMania.
Well, it's funny because, again, they're the ebbs and flows of wrestling, where you had your plateaus and then you had your triumphant moments. I felt like moving forward from here, and the stats could prove me wrong, but I felt like between a ladder match of that caliber and then Bret Hart getting the strap and having that, and that was a great match with Owen Hart. Yep. That was one of my personal highlights. I kind of feel like this was going to set the tone for wrestling in the 90s. And again, it all happened at the 10th anniversary of WrestleMania in Madison Square Garden. I think that's what's so important about these kind of milestone manias. For example, you had the first, then you had 10, then, WrestleMania 20, and now we're getting to 30. I think the milestone mania is where it needs to be booked, you really just need to be 100% about how you're going to book it, what style of matches you want, what caliber wrestler you want in there. So with that being said, how would you have booked this event differently?
Now, you start off the show with Bret and Owen in a great match, and you end it, not that Yokozuna isn't talented, but to me that match fell a little flat. The thing I would have done is, and going into the year before, you had Hogan where he didn't want to pass the torch to Bret and kind of left early.
Right.
The next guy in line, in my mind, is Randy Savage. I would have main evented this show with Randy Savage versus Bret Hart.
I really felt like the Savage match that we did get at this pay-per-view was just
throwaway.
Yeah, there was nothing remarkable about it, which was really a shame. And it was kind of insulting to him as a performer and as a person, as a worker. Just, that's not how I wanted to see Macho Man dealt with, or however you want to word it. That's not how I want to see him represented at a WrestleMania. And I agree with you. I would have done that differently. I either would have put him in a main event or put him in a better match or perhaps with a better adversary. I don't really know. I feel like really they wanted to focus a lot of the attention on Bret.
Oh, absolutely.
But also, I also kind of disagree with Yokozuna holding the title to begin with, because when you get bigger guys like that, it's harder to take. I mean, Lex Luger was believable as an opponent to possibly threaten his title reign. I mean, Bret Hart, again, we talk about superheroes in wrestling. He was going forward, if Hogan was the superhero of the 80s, Bret Hart was, at least till the mid-90s, Bret Hart was that guy. So, of course, you want to see him pull out those magical heart powers and grab the sharpshooter, and bam, he got the big ending on everybody's shoulders.
That's a phenomenal ending to WrestleMania, one that's, you have Savage, you have Razor Ramon, you have all the faces come out and hoist Bret Hart up in the air holding the title. A great image, one that's always played back in, WrestleMania highlights. But
well, for the matches that didn't work necessarily, of course, you had the Bret Owen match, and then you had the ladder match. So, if nothing else, and we've discussed in earlier episodes of this, that WrestleMania has always kind of been built around not just one main event, but two. Or, you have the main event, and then you have the match that kind of steals the show before the main event. So this was definitely one of those with the introduction of the ladder with Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels, who had amazing chemistry in the ring.
Definitely.
So we want to know your thoughts on this. At MO Commentary on Twitter, 978-276-9418. Were you there? Do you have any memories of this night? And, you know, how would you have booked it differently? Was there a match that we haven't mentioned that you think, above all the other ones, well, that's worth mentioning. Why didn't you guys mention it? So we're going to leave it up to you. For Marks on Mania, I'm Eddie Brophy.
I'm Jason Smith.
See you on the next episode.